The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and welcome to the Flourishing at TPE Onsite webinar. We're very excited to have you here today. Before we get into our content, I just wanted to remind you all that you can submit questions throughout the webinar. You should see a Submit Questions button on your screen. So we'll answer all of those questions at the end of our content, so just make sure to ask any questions you may have. And now we're going to get into introductions so you know who we are. So my name is Clara Ascona, and I'm currently the Associate Director of Residence Life at Long Island University, Brooklyn campus. I've been at TPE both as a candidate and as an employer, and currently I've been working in Residence Life for about 5 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Finzi Smith. I'm a resident director at University of California, Los Angeles, also known as UCLA. I have been to TPE both as a candidate, my graduating year of grad school, and as a recruiter for UCLA the past 2 years.
Hi, my name is Edelisha Mara. You all won't be able to see my photo on the presentation, but I am a member of the TPE Candidate Development Team. I'm here to assist Amanda and Clairville and with any questions you all may have in regards to being your best self at TPE. I also work at the University of Pennsylvania as a house dean.
Okay, so before we get into all the information, we want to just go over our outcomes and overview for today. So first, we hope participants will be able to apply provided tips into their TPE job search.
We also hope participants will be able to have an increased awareness of what to expect during their TPE experience.
We hope participants will be able to identify what they're looking for in this next position and attain a job that will be the best fit for them.
And so for our overview, basically we're going to go over the TPE on-site environment.
How to prepare for interviews and the experience as a whole.
And then at the end, all the questions you've asked during the presentation.
All right, so let's get to it. So one of the questions that we thought might be really important for all of you to know is what exactly is the environment at TPE Onsite? I think it's essential to talk about what it even looks like. I had the opportunity to volunteer the year before. I actually went through as a candidate when I was in graduate school, so I knew what to expect coming in, but maybe a lot of you may have no idea as to what this looks like, and it could be very overwhelming. So just to give you kind of an overview, it's a very large room that is separated into different sections. In the middle of the room, you'll find what's called like the waiting area, which will be divided by alphabet letters in terms of A through G and so on. And so you will be in this waiting area depending on your last name. And you will notice when you're in the waiting area that the other candidates who are also there waiting for their next interview may come off in different ways. Some may look super calm and collected. Some may look terrified. I'm not sure how you will look like, but obviously there's different ways to look. And then there's also a great opportunity for you to possibly review the notes that you have for your next interview, just so that's fresh on your mind. Some people prefer to just sit around and chat with other candidates in the waiting room. Like I said, some are super quiet. So it all depends on what kind of environment you want to be in. But if you do decide to sit around and just talk, just be mindful that you might be distracting others when they're trying to review their notes. When the interview time is approaching, be very mindful because the university could come from any side. There's two sides to the waiting room. So you always want to be mindful that you know what university to expect because they will come with either a banner or some other item from the university. And for example, come and say, you know, Long Island University for John Smith. So just obviously everybody's coming for their different candidates. So you want to be mindful that you're paying attention to who is coming to get you because you don't want to just sit there and they're just waiting for you and you're not paying attention. Also then, once you find the person that's supposed to interview you, they'll be walking you over to their table, which could be to the right or to the left. There are a lot of tables because there are many universities from across the country. And so you just want to keep in mind that when you reach your table, you might have several other people interviewing around you, whether it's behind you, in front of you, to your right, to your left. So you have to really maintain that focus on who's interviewing you because you might get easily distracted from listening to the interviews that are happening all around you. So just be mindful there's going to be a lot going on, but you really have to remain focused on your interview. Aside from that, there are other things that are occurring in this room as well. You can have different volunteers who can provide you with water or whatever you might need. If you have any questions, there are always volunteers around. And then outside of this room, there's also a different space with mailboxes, both for candidates and employers. Candidates become obsessed with checking their mailboxes. I know I was, just to see if they moved on to the next step, if they were possibly declined from a university they interviewed with, or maybe they have a new opportunity waiting in their mailbox, or just some cool swag. So just be mindful that you're consistently checking your mailbox, and then employers will be checking their mailboxes to see if they received, any thank you cards or stuff of that nature from the candidates, which you definitely want to do, and we'll get into that later on. I'm not sure if any of my fellow peers here had any more insight into that.
No, that sounds great.
You answered it perfectly.
Perfect. So then I wanted to then discuss, I guess, how to prepare before and then after the interview as well. So it's very important to first have the job descriptions of the ones you definitely know for sure you're going to go into at TPE, and then have your resume side by side. Look at those specific bullets of what the job requires and what this position will be responsible for, and then look at your own experiences and how you could state what skills or experiences you have that go hand in hand with what they're looking for. For example, maybe part of the role is to serve on the on-call rotation for all my residence life folks or who are looking to get into residence life. This means that you'll be responsible for any crisis that may come about. Look at your resume and think about a time you had to manage a crisis. What was the incident? What did you do from start to finish? How did you support the student? Did you follow up? Just think about all those instances and what you can bring to the table. You'll be surprised what experiences you may have that can go hand in hand with what they're looking for. I know when I was a candidate, a lot of the jobs are resident director jobs, and I literally, all I had was an internship experience in residence life, so I didn't think I would be as qualified, but I was able to use that and my other experiences and really share that and make it a more transferable skills kind of experience. So you definitely want to make sure you really look into what you've done and see how you can transform that into what they're looking for. In addition to all this, look through the university's website. Look at their mission, their values, same for their department. Look at the demographics. What are their traditions, their processes, any programs that they're known for? What does their newspaper say? Just do your research. I remember when I was going through TP and I was interviewing for the school that I ended up working for, the interviewer said to me later on, wow, you really did your homework. And later on, I came to find out that one of the main reasons I got the job was because I really knew what I was talking about, and I had shown that I really did my research in terms of the institution. So you definitely want to make sure that you know exactly everything that's going on as much as possible with the school. You don't want to come off as just, the vague information, that everybody else knows. One of the typical questions that you'll definitely get is why you want to work at this particular university, and you have to be able to specifically state why based on your research. Also be prepared to answer the tell me about yourself question. This question is always a tricky one. I know it's something that I'm always like, what exactly should I say here? But you do not want to go telling a whole story about yourself. That's not the purpose of that question. Keep it to about, I would say, a minute, minute and a half at most. I could say with this answer, maybe think about expressing like what you're currently doing or you have been doing. Maybe mention an accomplishment within that role. Talk about your strengths and what you're looking for in this next position and how, or your future career and how this position will fit into that. So maybe just something around those lines in terms of answering that question. We will get into this a little bit further, but have examples ready. So most typical questions relate to strengths, weaknesses, crisis management, community development, programming, team development, supervision style, advising style, how you manage conflict, questions regarding diversity and inclusion, and overall, why are you the best candidate? So just think about those questions as you're preparing for TPE, because those are usually the most common questions you might get. Also, have specific questions ready for the interviewer. Do not ever say, I do not have any questions. I would always say to be safe, go at least with maybe 3 questions. And remember, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Find out this is the perfect fit for you, which we will get into a little bit later, but know what you want. So definitely make sure you have those questions. Also, during the interview, make sure you're taking notes of what they say in response to your questions, but maybe you might want to jot down the questions they're asking you. I know I've seen some people do that as well. Be mindful of who said what, because when you're writing your thank you notes, you want to make it very personalized. It shouldn't be just like, I really enjoyed the interview. Thank you for having me. Maybe the interviewer said something about their team is like a family, and you can say, you stated that your team was like a family, and that truly resonated with me. I am looking to be part of a team where we can all support and rely on each other, and we are all bringing our strengths, support the overall mission of the department and university. So this shows, that you were listening and you're still making the case of why you would be a good fit for them. So just be mindful that you definitely want to write down what they're saying in regards to your questions and make it very personalized to each person that was interviewing you. I would also say ask for business cards at the end, just because, you want to keep in contact with these folks. Even if you don't end up working there, networking goes a long way. So you never know when you might want to contact that person. So just be mindful of that. I don't know if anybody else had anything to add.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, specifically to the last part you said about business cards, a tip that one of my mentors gave me is every time you get a business card, write on the back of it how you met that person, and then send them an email later, like reflecting on that moment of meeting. That was really helpful.
I'll add two things. This is Ebonish. Again, I feel like I've been saying kind of the same thing to candidates over the last few years. And so one of the questions I think sometimes that we often forget, or that's becoming really new, is tell me something else about you that we wouldn't know from the resume, from this interview. What is something else you want us to know about you that you haven't talked about yet? And with that, and so really having that ahead of time. And that really kind of distinguishes you from all the other 15 to 30 people that they're interviewing with in that few-hour time block as well. Also, another thing in terms of preparation before and after the interview was that because the good majority of the people who come to TPE are on site or right out of grad school, maybe it's your first time getting your professional job, with that, so you come as a group with that. You bring the whole cohort with you. You come to TPE on site with that, and you're doing a lot of preparations together before you even get there. What I would say, one of the preparation practices before an interview, or even before you get to TPE, is to do a lot of internal reflection with that, and doing a lot of things individually by yourself with that, aside from the 5 people that are in your program. That lessens your tendency to compare what you're doing versus what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, the interview is really about you and how you shine and how you make an impact on that employer.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I also wanted to get into what you should wear. It's very important. So definitely business attire. You don't want to go to interviews in jeans or sweats or anything like that. For the gentlemen, definitely wear a suit. Make sure it's dry cleaned. Wear comfortable dress shoes. Obviously have, the tie and the button-down shirt. In terms of color, I definitely say wear an item that would make you stand out. So for example, if you're going for a typical black suit, maybe wear a tie that has a nice pattern, that stands out. Or maybe you go with a suit that's not a traditional color. So for example, if you don't want to go with black or gray, maybe you can wear a blue suit or something like that. So just make sure you're still a professional. Have a briefcase and portfolio just to make your look, more wholesome. And then for the ladies, you have a little bit more like room to work with in terms of you could go with a pantsuit or a skirt suit. Just make sure when you're wearing a skirt that you don't have to keep pulling it down because obviously that doesn't look too great if you keep having to do that. And once again, to find a way to stand out. I remember when I was going through TP, one day I wore a blue suit. The next day I wore a burgundy suit. And I received a lot of compliments from people that were interviewing me actually because I went with, a different kind of color. I decided to go with flat shoes because I don't wear heels on a regular basis. And I wanted to be comfortable. And make sure that you remember that. Comfort is definitely important. So if you don't wear heels like me, don't decide to wear heels for TPE because you might look awkward, walking around or be very uncomfortable. So be mindful of that. I also decided not to wear my hair out because I knew it would get in my face consistently. So if your hair is like mine, then just be mindful of that. You want to wear a hairstyle where you'll be able, to be comfortable and not have to constantly shove your hair out of your face or anything like that. In regards to jewelry and makeup, I'm known, as you can see by my picture, for my super large dramatic earrings, but I had to tone it down for TP and obviously wear super small ones to be more professional. And in terms of makeup, try to go for a more, I would say, natural look. You don't want to have like dramatic, fake eyelashes and super bright blue eyeshadow or, a green lipstick or something like that. Just because that might be a bit too much for the setting. So just being mindful of how you look. And then even with your purse, if you're gonna have one, I went with just a standard black one, but just being mindful of, colors and patterns, because you don't want to look like you're going to a club or a fashion show. So just being mindful of that. I don't know if any of you had any more suggestions in regards to clothing for TP.
I think that's it.
That was good.
Go ahead.
Good. And then in terms of self-care practices, main thing, do not schedule back-to-back interviews. I can't stress this enough. First of all, you will be stressed. Second of all, if your interview for some reason goes over the allotted time, which is usually 30 minutes or 45, now you're missing for your next interview. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a break in between. And also you would want to break just because you might want to go to the restroom, you might want to grab a snack or a meal, maybe prep some more before the next interview, or you might want to just take a quick nap, who knows. But you definitely want to make sure that you have a break in between your interviews. On that same note, do not schedule too many interviews for the same day. You'll be very overwhelmed, and I know that you probably won't be as prepared due to all the prepping you have to do for all of these schools for one day. And you're also maybe likely to mix up the schools you're interviewing for. I know that's happened to people before, where they were interviewing with a school and then it turned out to, name another school in the process, which you don't want to do. So just be mindful that you don't want to overextend yourself. I know when I was going through it, I thought I had to get all these interviews because I really wanted to get a job, but trust me, you will get a job. You do not have to stress yourself out by, just accumulating more and more interviews. Don't overdo it. So just do enough, I would say. And then remember to drink water, get your sleep, eat, please, shower. And, if you decide to have your little fun off campus, not off campus, but off TP, just remember in terms of alcohol, you don't want to come hungover to your interviews. Just be mindful of these things because that is, could be the environment at the time. So just being mindful of that. For me.
I will add to that if you have time. I will add to that against Stephanie again with that what was just said in terms of alcohol usage, right? And so we want you to take full advantage of the wonderful place that TPE is going to be in Philadelphia with that. But we also want you to recognize and continue to remind yourself of why you're here and what that. And so anywhere that you go within those few days of TPE, you can run into an employer with that. You can run into anybody with that. It's going to be filled with a whole bunch of folks during those few days of that. And so balancing, I'm here for an interview. How do I enjoy Philadelphia with that and being mindful of everywhere that you go, to be quite honest.
Yeah, we'll definitely also address that a little bit more later on, but you definitely, yes, want to be mindful of everyone around you at all times. Because I know as a candidate, although everyone else was engaging in it, obviously they already had jobs. So as a candidate, you definitely want to be mindful that you're trying to attain a job and you're there to impress. So remember that.
Okay. So one of the major things I think that was important for me and my fellow classmates that all went together was the whole sense of competing. TPE will have thousands of jobs, but it will have even more individuals looking for that job. And you and your friends may be going for the same position, but do not compete. You're going to meet so many people, and some of them are definitely going to be interviewing for the same position as you, but just get to know them. And not because you want to know who your competition is, but because this person might be your colleague or supervisor one day. Student affairs is so small, and having those connections is so important. Get to know folks and their skill sets and make sure to share yours. Whether you'll be working with them at the same institution or not, you would need the support and connections in the future. This isn't a race to get the job first. It's a way to get the best folks in the right position. There, as I said, there are so many positions that are going to be at TPE, and although one may be look like it's perfect for you, you may not be perfect for that position. But there's definitely going to be one there that is perfect for you and that great first or second stepping stone into student affairs. So if one, you don't get that second call back, do not be down. Don't be mad that your friend got it. Don't think this is the competition, because you really want to make sure you're happy in what you're doing. Ladies, have anything to add for that?
Yeah, just going along with that, I know for me, I don't think I was necessarily thinking about competing with like the strangers in the room, but I was more so in regards to my cohort. I know it's super competitive. I remember just saying like, oh my God, so-and-so already got an on-campus interview. I haven't gotten anything. So like Amanda said, just don't psych yourself out, because you will get yours eventually, especially because universities also work through different timelines. So just because someone already has an on-campus interview, maybe the other university is still, working on other interviews. So just be mindful that everything is on their own timeline. So especially like I said, if you have a cohort that's small and everybody's constantly talking about what they're doing, that could get you. But trust me, everyone ended up fine in my cohort. So in the beginning, like I said, it was very stressful, but just keep that in mind. You'll be fine.
Okay, and then for the next part, it's how do I manage finances during TPE Onsite? So let's just start by openly saying it. It's an expensive process. You're paying to go there, you're paying to stay there, you're paying to eat, you have to buy food. It's expensive, and you're doing it on a grad school or entry-level budget. But there's a few ways to prepare yourself financially and ensure that you're keeping your coins in order. So for instance, outfits, which Clarabelle kind of talked about earlier, you need to look sharp, no question, but it doesn't mean you need to break the bank to any extent. I definitely planned my outfits in advance. Like I was like, how many days are there? How many evenings are there? Because you probably going to want 2 outfits per day. And then just plan myself accordingly. So maybe my undershirts were being shared, or my, or I was mixing, mingling tops. Even your casual outfits, you just want to you want to prepare them in advance. Don't plan for a million extra outfits, because you honestly don't need them. Once you're there for the day, you're there. And so you just want one outfit that's going to really be comfortable, but not too expensive. Consignment stores will be your friend. You can get a one piece that can complete each outfit for a low price. Also looking for sales like Express and those kind of stores always have good work outfits that will definitely help you in not spending too much money. Your toiletries and your hair products, just plan for the weather and plan yourself accordingly. Like you may only need 1 belt. You may only need a couple outfits, maybe 1 purse, like Clarabelle said, for the entire trip. You don't need to pack 5 or buy 5. For your meals and your snacks, stick to your meal budget. So know how much money you have and plan accordingly. You don't need to pay, like if you're going to dinner with someone, you do not need to spend as much as they're spending on their meal. Know your budget, and that's okay. Nobody's judging you for getting the 2 for $20 or for ordering the salad or for spending within your budget. It just means that you're responsible. So don't feel like you need to impress by what you eat, because they don't care about what you're ordering. They honestly don't. They care more about what you have to say. And some things to note, like when you get there, I remember I went to the grocery store and bought like snacks and water. A case of water is the same price as 2 bottles of water at the conference center. So just keep that in mind when you're buying things. Also, walk or use the subway or even Ubers. Just find affordable means to get where you're going versus or share a car if you and your cohort mates are going. Maybe you guys are renting a car together. Just really know how much money you can spend and work within that means. Do not go over. It is expensive, but nobody on the other end, like none of us as employers are looking at how much money you spent. We honestly don't care as long as you're an amazing candidate.
Yeah, and just to add to that, maybe you may not know yet, but depending if you have a graduate assistantship, make sure you're communicating with your supervisor, because there might be funds for you. to be able to go to TPE or the NASPA conference as a whole. So just be mindful of letting them know what your plans are if they don't know them already, just to see if maybe they can assist you in any way possible.
Yeah, that's definitely important. Okay.
All right, so what support do you have during this process? Like I mentioned before, it could be very overwhelming to go through TPE, both for introverts and extroverts. So just because you may be an extrovert, don't think it's going to be, the greatest thing ever to be surrounded by so many people. I would say take a time to check in with someone who is not a TPE at least once a day, and maybe even more so if someone is not in higher ed, because that way they're not familiar at all with what's happening, and it'll be just a fresh outlook on things. And it's good to have someone who can talk you off the ledge. You may be doubting yourself. Maybe you got declined from the university you really wanted to go to. So you want to make sure that someone is constantly reminding you that you are competent, that you will attain a job. So just make sure you're communicating with those loved ones that can really be supportive during this process. I would also say I relied a lot on my cohort as well, just because we were all going through the same exact process. We were all stressed. So in that sense, they understood where I was coming from. And we were able to rely on each other and really use each other as kind of a support system, but also provide each other tips maybe that we got throughout the day, just to make sure we were good to go, maybe for the following interview. So you definitely want to make sure you use each other as that support system. Also, maybe during this time, there might be some socials, identities that maybe you specifically affiliate with. So maybe that might be a good support system for you. Also, just being mindful that, let's say, you are consistently working on your physical and or mental health, there's not the time to stop that process. So if you need to go to the gym, take a walk, do whatever you need to make sure, you're receiving that self-care that I was talking about earlier. You need to maybe consult with your therapist during this time as well. That's a great support system to really talk you through this process. Obviously, if you're taking medication, make sure you're taking that so that you're not off of taking care of you. So make sure you always are taking care of yourself. And then always just, even if you don't know the person, smile at them, say hello. They're also going through the process. So you don't have to be competing, as we mentioned before. So just make sure you're always positive. And really, like I said, reaching out to those people who you think can really help you through this process and be supportive. Because you don't want to go through this alone. It's very overwhelming. So just be mindful of that.
I would add one more thing just about on-site in terms of support during the process. And so the reason that we have a candidate development team is for us to support you all while you're there on site with that. And so we have a candidate workroom with that, where you come and you take your break and you eat your food and make a new friend with that. That's separate from the employer station. So one thing that they want to note that is that the candidates and employers aren't together with that during those break periods with that. And so we are also there as well in terms of the team to just answer questions that you have with that, ease your mind a little bit about your next interview or what just happened in that interview with that, in that workroom with that throughout those few days with that, because we want to see you have a job with that. And so we're all doing what we can to make sure that you feel as comfortable as possible through the hecticness of TPE.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
Okay, in regards to questions you can ask, we'll get into this a little bit more later on as well, but make sure you use the resources that TPE Onsite provides. So ask questions about the interview process, ask about tips and tricks from professionals around you. Don't stay confused. If you need a direction maybe to where the mailboxes are, or something as simple as where can I get water, or where can I get a snack, just make sure you're asking people questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. There's no stupid question, as we always say. So there are always people there to help you at all times. And then in the actual interviews, as I mentioned before, don't be afraid to have your questions. Like I said, at least I would say have 3. We'll get into this a little bit later, like I said, but asking about the culture, the area, the position, what you want to know about the institution, your possible future colleagues. You're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So make sure you do that. Also, I know some people have done it as well. maybe at the socials, second rounds, or if you move on later on, being mindful of what's important for you. So maybe where's the closest airport, maybe, your hair is very important to you. So maybe what's the closest barbershop or hair salon. I know past colleagues that I've known have asked these questions because it is very important to them if that's where they're going to be living at, for the next couple of years. So being mindful of what's important for you. And as you move on in the process, being mindful of asking those questions because, maybe you have a pet or something and it's very important to you, but maybe that school has a no pet policy. So now where do you stand, with that school? So being mindful of asking those important questions.
I would also add, when you're interviewing and they ask you, do you have any questions? Have honest and open questions. Don't just ask so do you like working there? But what is the atmosphere in your office? What is it like to work with your colleagues? Or how long have you been there? How long do you plan on being there? Like, if there's an appropriate way to ask those questions, so you know what you're setting yourself up for. Because if they like you and you end up liking them, this could be your next career step, and you want to make sure you're happy.
I would agree with that.
And I think that's even more important for folks who have marginalized identities. With that, when you're at that last question, with that, and you're looking at who's across from the community table, and they don't look like you. What questions can you ask about the people who aren't sitting at the table that work at their institution that may look like you? What that in terms of how are they creating an inclusive environment? How do the people of color on their staff feel? How would they describe their experience working at their institution with that? And so really getting into those kind of nitty-gritty questions with that would make that deciding factor whether this institution is the one you want to move forward with while they're doing the same thing.
Correct. One thing I would add to that, which I just thought of, in the first round is generally when you ask the more like just introductory questions. But if you're definitely got a second round interview with someone, that's when you really go into those in-depth questions that they just kind of shared with you, because that's when it's like you're almost there. Your next step is generally to go on campus or not. And so you really want to even know these things before you get the on-campus offer, because sometimes you're paying for it. And so do you even want to go there if they don't have what you're looking for? So definitely when you get a second round interview, those are the more in-depth questions. Okay, moving forward. So a lot of people want to know, how can you stand out? There's a way to be professional while remaining unapologetically you. You're unique and no one can bring to the table what you can. Make sure folks know that about you. When you're interviewing, when you're talking to them, when you're networking, make sure they know who you are. One of the ways that most people actually say is thank you cards. Is a great way to stand out, is to create your own with your information already on it. There's nothing that cardstock and publisher can't make happen. If you're artistic, even better. If you're not like me, I just bought thank you cards that I thought looked like my style, right? I'm not artistic at all, but I can pick a nice thank you card. So I did that. But then I made sure to handwrite each one of my thank you cards and put something personal in there. Some people create small business cards for themselves with really just your basic contact information. That's another way to do it. And don't be afraid of color. We talked about what you can wear earlier. A suit, a tie, a skirt, that's a great outfit. But if you're one for color, don't be scared of it. Do it. Black and white is great, and it's what most people are going to wear. But having a red watch or an orange professional bag is one to be remembered. Be the you that they'll see every day. Professionalism and putting your best foot forward is a must, but you also want them to see who you are and who you'll be working with on throughout the week. If you're one to wear your hair out, do that and own it. If you hate your contacts, wear those glasses that make you feel most uncomfortable. If you can't walk in heels, like Claire Bell was saying earlier, find cute flats that, to make your day more comfortable and productive. Don't be who you think higher ed wants you to be, but be who you are. I know for me, my style is so important to me. Like, I love pops of color. So I had plaid pleated jackets that had hints of pink in it. as you see in my picture, my curly hair, I wear that on a daily basis. So during my interviews, I wore it as well. I remember having the conversation with my mentor of whether I should straighten my hair or just leave it curly, because straight hair is generally the look that most corporate places want. And she just told me, you're going to wear your hair curly every day. So if that's who you are and that's who they want to hire, then you should put that forward. And I did, and people loved it. So honestly, just be you, be what makes you comfortable, because then you're going to see people who accept you for who you are and not for the image you're putting on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to add to that?
No, I agree with all that.
Okay. And then what do I have to be aware of? The entire time at TPE is in an interview. The elevator, the lunch table, even the check-in at the information desk. You must be aware to not speak about a person or a school knowing it can come back to them. You don't know who knows who, and you want to make sure your character isn't taken into question. I encourage you to go out and have fun off-site, but you never know who is watching. As folks of color, there aren't many of us, and we are really easy to be recognized. Don't be remembered for what happened that evening before or on a social site. Also be aware of how you hear others chatting and conducting themselves. Though not fair, we are associated with others, whether it's negative or not. Just because we didn't take part, we'll be remembered for being there. Don't let it cost you your second interview. I remember when I went on site, I stuck to my mentors because I figured they were going to know who I need to know because they were in the positions I wanted to be in. And that is exactly what they told me. They were like, look, anything you say, anything you do, if you have something negative to say, or you have you want to talk about it, wait till you get to your hotel room. Call someone then, but do not do it when you're on site. You are always interviewing. Someone is always watching you. I remember I got a job offer from being at the lunch table talking with a couple VPs that just happened to be at the table with me. You really are always, always, always being interviewed. Someone is always watching you. Anything to add?
I agree with all of that too.
Okay. So now we're going to go into what's one of my favorite parts is have examples ready. One of the biggest key advice I ever got was to always have examples ready. And the way that I did this and the way that it was suggested to me to do this is write down a list of every organization you've been in while in undergrad and grad school. Next to those organizations, write down things you did, like maybe a list of 10 things. Then get questions. I mean, all of us can find questions of just what are the general questions asked. Have those questions down on a piece of paper and write the organization next to the question. So that way, when you're looking, you can match the organization, the example, and the question. So for instance, have you ever had to deal with a crisis, right? You already have 3 crisis examples from the 3 different organizations you've been in. So now it's just to plug them in. That way, when you're going to a table, you have so many that you're ready for. I literally wrote that down in a notebook and just read over them and just practice. Okay, if someone asked me about crisis, I could talk about my Black Student Union experience. I could talk about my dance marathon experience. I could talk about cheerleading experience. I had 3 examples always ready to go. So whether I had the first, second, or third round, I just had examples. And the only way that worked for me was writing them down in advance. And it's okay to refer to an example you've already used if it is extremely fitting for that question that they pose to you. I would just say, I usually set that up with hey, I just wanted to continue on the example I gave earlier because it really fits this question. Let me expand on the information I gave you. Yeah, that was my biggest things. Have examples ready, and sometimes examples can be you working with others, right? I worked with my coworker and they experienced this and this is how we debriefed it. There's definitely ways to have examples for everything. Do you ladies have anything to add for that?
Yeah, for those of you, if this is your second time around at TPE, or if you're a mid-level candidate, your example should be your professional accomplishments by then. With that, if you're entry level, exactly what you said in terms of taking in different organizations and having an example for each. But if you've worked for a while, what that really hone in on what are some professional accomplishments that you've made since being in the field.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, and just like Amanda was saying, if you do get also to that second round interview, just being mindful that whatever they asked you in the first round, obviously they want to go more in depth in the second round. So being mindful that, like she said, maybe you can use that first example and go deeper into it if there's more, or definitely having them separate examples, just so you're not repeating yourself over and over. But because they want to hear, different experiences as well. So just being mindful, you definitely want to have a couple, as Amanda said.
Yeah. Okay. And be open-minded. This was hard for me because and I'll get into it next, but when I went there, I had in my mind the type of school I wanted to be at. But you are going to get offers from schools to interview that you probably never thought of, or you probably don't want to be in that state, or it's too small, or it doesn't fit exactly what you want. But be open-minded, because there's two main good things that can come from that. One, you're getting interview experience with people that you may have never met before. Also, you may love that school and you may love those people. It may be a school that is outlandish into what you had set in your mind, but you never know. And especially with student affairs, always be open to looking at places that you didn't know, because that may just be your stepping stool to your next step, or your stepping stool to get where you want to be. And worst comes to worst, it's great practice, right? And you've met a great new group of people who will be those connections you need moving forward in student affairs.
Also, that's why it's very important, as I said before, check your mailbox, because that is when you'll usually get those invitations from those schools that maybe you weren't thinking about. So please check your mailbox consistently. And another piece of advice that I was given before is that maybe, especially when you're entry level, you may want to just, explore all over the country. Maybe it is your time if you don't have a family, or anything that may be holding you back. If you're just a single person straight out of grad school, then maybe you want to take those chances and just see what's out there. Maybe you want to be in a small town, maybe you want to be in a big city that you've never been in. So just being mindful that maybe this is an opportunity for you to really just go out and, spend 2 or 3 years, whatever it might be, in this new world that you've never been in, just to explore and see if maybe it is for you or maybe it's not. But definitely would say take the chance if you can, because you might learn that that's the right fit for you. So.
Yeah. Okay. So next, know what you want. Know what type of university you're interested in. And when I say that, I mean, know the population type. So that can be a predominantly white institution, a Hispanic serving institution, a historically Black college, a community college, primarily commuter university, large live-on population, an Ivy League. Know the type, but also know the size. Do you want to work at a large institution? Do you want to work at a medium-sized institution? Do you want to work at a small institution? Knowing that really helps to narrow down, one, where you want to interview, and two, what you're looking for when you go into this process. Because there's going to be thousands of job opportunities there, you really want to set yourself up to know and not overwhelm yourself with things that you just don't want to do. So yes, be open-minded, but if you know, like, this is a no-no, I never want to work for a small institution, then don't even open yourself up to it unless you have the time and space, because there's going to be so many opportunities to work within the realm that you want to work. Know what departments you're interested in. So are you interested in campus life, advising, residential life, community service, career services, conduct, multicultural, LGBTQA center, etc. Knowing the type of departments you want to work in will help when looking through all the job opportunities. When you're going through the website, you're going to see every department that could have ever been created in life, but knowing what you're interested in will help narrow down that search. Know the population of students you want to work with. So do you want to work with commuters? Do you want to work with athletes? overly involved students, international students, live-on students, etc. This will help you figure out the type of job that will give you that access. So say you don't necessarily know the department you want to work with, but you know the students you want to help, underprivileged students, foster care, whatever the case may be. Just knowing the population can help you figure out the job and the department. And also know what type of office atmosphere you want to work in. How do the individuals in that department interact? This is things you can gather from the interview, so you won't necessarily know before, but when interviewing, and we talked about those questions after, this is where you get that information to decide whether that department is there for you or not. Knowing these things is really important when going into such a large process as TPE, because it really helps you to focus and know what you're looking for when you're interviewing. Anything you ladies want to add?
Nope, that is all.
Okay. And last but not least, enjoying the experience. Just enjoy it. This experience is tough. It's exhausting, but you can make the best out of it. Know yourself and know what you can handle. Don't overbook yourself with interviews, and enjoy the experience as a whole. The networking outside of experiencing, the meeting lots of new people, the watching your friends and yourself succeed at this next chapter in your lives. For introverts, I know my friends who are introverts, because I'm not an introvert, but my friends who are introverts, this was hard. But after, when they saw themselves put themselves out there, they really appreciated it. So make sure to take care of yourself, like Clarabelle said, but enjoy the experience. If this is your first time, this is going to be eye-opening. If this is your second time, you're kind of in there and you know what you're supposed to be doing, but just enjoy it every time you're there. It's overwhelming, but nothing that you can't handle. Take the breaks you need, disappear when necessary, but look at the beauty of the opportunity in front of you. It's rare that you're going to have this many universities in one place from all over the country without you having to go to them. Appreciate it and use it to your example. This experience, TPE, was built so that individuals like us could go and have every opportunity to get the most amazing job and the job that was fit for us. So really, really just appreciate it while you're going through the experience.
I agree.
So now our next portion is just questions. There have been some questions put in here, so we'll kind of just go through them. Any of the three of us will answer them as we go. So I'll read the first question. What does the process look like before TPE, after you register? Do you apply to individual positions for interviews? And what is the deadline for that?
So I can go ahead and answer that with that. So for the process in terms of after you register for TPE, so if you haven't noticed, if you haven't looked through the postings with that, jobs are being posted every day. With that, each school has their own process with that. So if you were to click on the title of that job, with that, that institution will tell you how they are accepting applicants. So either they will have a link to their HR site, with that. They will just take your resume at TPE and the deadline you need to apply for on their HR side with that. So it does vary by institution. Some institutions will not interview you at TPE if you have not filled out their HR application with that. And some will with that. And some will have you fill out the HR application after you interviewed with them at TPE with that. And so there really is no standard deadline that we set at TPE. It's the institutions with that. And so you can schedule your interviews, set them up beforehand with that. A lot of people set up their first interviews beforehand with their potential employer with that under their TPE account with that. And some folks will set up when they get to TPE, but you really shouldn't be coming to TPE without having set up at least one interview beforehand because it's kind of risky going. Hoping you get an interview on site with that. And so most of them are set up beforehand.
Yeah, kind of just what she said. There is no deadline specifically. You're just trying to get in before. But if I have had friends that didn't have interviews set up, and that's literally like, so the first day you get there, you'll get these quarter slips that kind of just say your name, your candidate number, what position you're applying to, and the university name. And you can just write in a note to the university that you want to apply for, like, hey, my name is Amanda and I'm really interested in this position. This is why I've attached my resume and my cover letter. I'd love to have an opportunity to interview with you. And you drop that in their mailbox. So that's always an opportunity for you to get more interviews, but you do want to start reaching out ahead of time while looking through the online site.
No penalty for being early.
None whatsoever. So our next question is, I see a lot of residential life positions. Will there be a good amount of other opportunities other than res life? I'll start. So one of the things that I have noticed is when I was going through the process is residential life, usually they're just ahead of it because they usually have so many positions open. And it's like an every year thing, right? Like every year we're hiring new resident directors or resident coordinators. So they usually post earliest. The other positions like cultural centers and career services, sometimes they take longer because they only have one opening, or they're not sure if they're going to hire through that process. But typically there are always a good amount of other opportunities. Res Life is just, in my experience, has been the more overwhelming just because they have so many positions.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think maybe second place in terms of positions available is usually like maybe something within student life, campus activities, however you may call it at the different institutions. But as Amanda said, resident director positions usually can range from, like 5 different ones to sometimes a lot more, depending how big the university is. So just being mindful that you might have to take that route, depending. So just because there's a lot more opportunities there.
Okay. What is a good amount of interviews to schedule per day?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. I
feel like when I went through it, like I said before, I feel like I overextended myself, so I don't even remember how many I had scheduled.
I don't know if there's an answer for that. I think depending on how early you wake up, comfortably how early you wake up and how late you're willing to go, and then give yourself at least 30 to 45 minutes in between.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know like a number.
I would say, I had a colleague once who had like 30 interviews. That was just a lot. So what I tell candidates is, if you have more than like 10 interviews, ask yourself why with that. And so because it can get very overwhelming, especially when second round interviews aren't even scheduled yet with that. And so do you see yourself realistic being able to say, I can work at 30 institutions or 20 institutions? With that, the amount of interviews you have do not determine the type of job that you're going to get with that. And so I know people who've had 4 interviews and gotten the job, people who've had 7 interviews and gotten the job with that. And so really to focus on, do I see myself working here versus how many numbers with that. In a typical day, just counting first interviews alone, maybe 5 with that, 5 to 7. It's a breathable amount with that, to be able to go and relax for a little bit, to go eat with that, take advantage of the on-site resources and interview. Just for first round interviews. And that also leaves room for second round interviews if you have smaller at the beginning. But again, it varies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good number.
So next question. How much will I stand out if I wear a dress shirt with tie, bow tie, dress pants, and dress shoes? Like, if I don't wear a suit specifically, will that hurt me?
I'm pretty sure from my recall being at TPE that I have seen gentlemen wear, professional attire without the suit jacket. I think that, at least from my experience, nobody ever said like, oh my God, he's not wearing a suit jacket, he's definitely not getting this job. As long as you still, I feel like, have that professional look, and like I said before, in terms of you standing out, maybe, your bow tie, it has a nice pattern that I can remember or something like that. I still think it won't disqualify you. Obviously, if you have the qualifications, you not having a suit jacket, it's not gonna eliminate you per se. I'm not sure if other people might have that specific requirement, but at least from what I know, I think that won't necessarily take you away from getting a position or, getting that next interview just because you might not have that jacket piece.
I agree with that.
If anything, those folks sometimes get compliments from the employers with that for their bow ties.
Yeah. So our next question. Do you care about?
Yeah. So where can we see a list of institutions or jobs within our regions so we can begin to research available positions?
So when you go on the TPE, and so you can search jobs even without having without even registering for TPE. It's what we hope you all have registered with that. And so when you go to the candidates tab under the placementexchange.org website, with that, all the job postings would show up with that. But you also can filter your job search by different states with that. So just click on or type in Pennsylvania or Arizona, and it'll bring up all those jobs that are in those states. You can also filter even more by years of experience with that, by type of position, and etc. with that. And so you can do that right after this webinar with that. Just go and see what's been posted right now.
Okay, so what is the success rate with candidates that attend TPE? I'm not sure exactly a percentage, but as mentioned before, at least when I was going through it and my cohort as well, I think if I remember correctly, all of us were able to attain a position out of TPE, except for those who were specifically looking for maybe a totally different kind of position, within a specific city. They were doing their own independent search, but if someone went to TPE, from what I recall, we all were able to attain a position there. There are tons and tons of universities. So if you're open and you're not super limited, there's definitely a very, very, very high chance you're going to get a position out of TPE.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we answered already the question about how many interviews are comfortable per day, so I'll skip that one. Are the follow-up interviews always on campus? And if so, is travel for them at our expense? That's a very great question. So second round interviews sometimes do happen at TPE, but sometimes they might not. Some schools, just do the first round, then they might just do on campus. Some people have, do 2 interviews at TPE and then they'll do the on campus. So it depends. Some people even have 4 interviews. So it depends how the school functions in regards to how many interviews you're going to have. But in regards to that very, very last interview, it does happen on campus. And then in regards to expenses, it varies by the institution. So I know that some schools, they'll tell you you have to pay out of your own pocket. And then depending on if you attain the job, you might get that money back or you might get half. It all depends. I've heard very different stories, but some schools I know definitely want you to pay out of your own pocket. Some schools will fly you over if that's the case, or pay for your mileage if you have to drive. So it's all dependent on the institution.
Yeah, I concur.
Is it common for employers to ask for follow-up meals or dinners? I didn't have it in my case. I'm not sure if you ladies have had that happen.
No, and here is our stance on that as TPE with that. So there should never be any interviews happening like at dinner or lunch with that. So there shouldn't be like, come and meet the rest of our team so we can ask you like more questions with a piece of paper. That should not be happening at TPE Onsite with that. Now, if an employer wants to invite you to lunch or dinner just informally with that, and it has nothing to do with getting more interview things in, with that is fine. With that, it's not common with that's happening for everybody, but especially if employers are not doing a candidate reception at TPE, they may do a follow-up, ask for a follow-up meal with that, just to kind of get to know you informally with that. So I do know that sometimes that happens, that they're not going to do an all-out candidate reception at TPE. But interviews should not be happening outside of the interview room.
Yeah.
Do we have time for more questions?
1 minute.
1 minute. Trying to see which one should we pick. Maybe can we?
Special resume paper, I'd say that yes. I am putting on regular paper is not okay. Unless you're like down to your last resumes, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a question here about business cards and thank you notes. Definitely thank you notes, as we mentioned before. Business cards, if you have them or if you're able to make them, just your general contact information, if you have a position. But it's not necessarily a requirement for you to have a business card, but definitely yes to the thank you notes.
Yeah. Thank you notes are definitely.
Participating as a candidate and a volunteer at TPE at the same time. I think that might be a bit too much. I would say if you're going to be a candidate, just be a candidate. Because, you want to use that break time just to,
relax.
Prepare for the next interview or just relax instead of having to also volunteer at the same time. So I would say that would be probably too much or too stressful.
Okay.
Then the schedule of day 1, day 2, it's basically just a lot of interviews and socials if the institutions have them. I would say that's pretty much the schedule of day 1 and day 2.
Okay, so that's all the time we have for questions, but if you want to join us for next time, these are the 3 that we'll be having. Acing the phone, Skype interview, networking, and TPE employer receptions, candidates Q&A. It's a Facebook Live. If you haven't registered for TPE, here's your information.
Remember, it ends in the night.
Oh yeah, it ends tonight. On-site boot camp if you're interested. And if you want to become a volunteer.
I'm really thinking hard about that piece.
Yeah, don't overwork yourself. And then that's all the information we have for you.
And if we didn't get to your question, if you have any more questions, like always, email us at the placement exchange candidates at theplacementexchange.org so we can get your questions answered for you. Again, to assist in making TPE the best experiences for you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope that you were able to get a lot of knowledge today and use this towards your TPE on-site experience. And hopefully you all have a lot of good luck and you'll all be very successful.
Best of luck to all of you. Hope to see you in the field soon.
Have a great day.
Good day. Bye.